Well, let's get to our next segment.
Let's get to our next guest. I mean, Kelly, immigration and what's going on our southern border also dominating the news. We've had a couple of developments overnight in regard to the Honduran caravan, the refugee seekers who are now at our border demanding to get in. Some of them have tried to force their way in. Many of those have been deported back to Honduras already. The Mexican government has arrested and deported a number of them, but more keep showing up every day. Yesterday, they held a press conference with a list of demands. I'm like, well, that's bold. You're down here banging on the door to get in, and you're making demands of us,
right?
And also another development: Mexico has offered a number of the refugee seekers asylum in that country and jobs, and are being refused because these folks, these supposedly folks who are fleeing for their lives, say, well, wait a minute, those jobs aren't good enough. We want American jobs. Very much every day exposing themselves not as political refugees, but as economic refugees. And if their goal is simply to come here and get jobs, then they need to get in line behind all of the other people who are following the legal process to get in.
Although they are following the legal process illegally to get in and then claim asylum, which according to the Constitution,
except 90% of them don't fit the qualifications for asylum seekers, according to the State Department estimates. And yet, if they come in the door and make the application and we release them into American society, we will never see them again in a asylum court.
Well,
that's been the pattern, and that will be the pattern with these folks.
And that is the issue. You know, that decision about asylum was a judicial decision, and that's why a lot of conservatives have for years been calling for immigration reform. And we are joined now by one of those conservatives, Jordan Bruneau, who's with the Becoming American Initiative, who argues not only do we need comprehensive reform to make sure that our legal immigration system works, but that the Republicans need to find a better way to talk about immigration and immigration reform if they want to keep winning elections. Jordan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me on.
So what do you make of everything that's happening down at the border, Jordan? And the chaos that it's causing is providing a good amount of fuel for folks like Donald Trump to keep pushing the boundaries on immigration policy?
Well, what I'd say is that, look, nobody wants these caravans. Nobody wants the continued illegal crossing, even proponents of comprehensive immigration reform. But the way I see it is that this is just merely a symptom of a broader underlying cause that dates back centuries, that there's always going to be people who want to come and make a better life in the U.S. And this is really in line with the best of U.S. traditions, and that the Republicans need a way to message on this that reflects that and doesn't scapegoat and demonize these people, the vast majority of whom are peaceful and similar to what has made our country great over these past couple of centuries, yearning to breathe free and make a better life for themselves and their families.
Much in the way that Ronald Reagan did. I contrast Ronald Reagan's remarks and how he handled immigration with Donald Trump's. It's a pretty sharp difference for Republicans. But at the same time, we had a huge immigration problem back then with illegal immigrants in the country. Donald Trump has handled this very differently. Do you believe that a lot of Republicans right before the election called for Donald Trump to keep a little quieter than he was on immigration? He trumpeted that up, a lot of folks say, because he wanted to get turnout up amongst Republicans. Do you think that ended up hurting the Republicans in the long run with the suburban votes?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question on this. I mean, actually, in fact, Paul Ryan reportedly called Trump the weekend before the election and begged him to shift to a more uniting, pro-growth message that would resonate with suburbanites, where Paul Ryan and smart Republicans recognized that the result of the election would lie. And unfortunately, Trump didn't take that message, and you saw the majority of the 39 seats the Democrats flipped, including right here in Michigan's 8th and 11th districts. The suburban districts really carried them to the House of Representatives victory. And I think President Trump and his hardline anti-immigration advisors share a lot of the blame in losing that for Republicans.
But he says he wants comprehensive immigration reform too. What's the difference here then?
Right. I mean, he says. I mean, he certainly has said that. Look, I'm in favor of DACA reform. He's holding out on a $20 billion wall. Again, that doesn't seem like the fiscally responsible and moral solution. I think what we'd really say is a real key pillar to immigration reform. What will help address the illegal immigration problem, and it's in the best of line of Republican traditions, which Reagan and Bush both promoted heavily, is increased work visas. You mentioned in the opening segment these caravan seekers need to just get in line, follow the legal immigration process. Unfortunately, for people like them, there really is no line. And meanwhile, the Department of Labor expects that there's going to be a demand for 1 million home health aides alone over the next decade. There's 7 million unfilled jobs in this country, jobs at chicken processing plants and crabberies. Ice cream shops are going unfilled. So it really seems to me as a great compromise solution that traditional Republicans can lead on.
But a lot of people look at what's happening at the border and they do see chaos, and they don't necessarily think that, the people who are trying to breach the border, climb over the wall, get tear gassed, should be in the country. Mexico is even trying to get them out of Tijuana now too. How do we circle that square? How do we confront the reality of these caravans keep waving at our border, trying to knock down the border, trying to get over the border, but also try to make sure that there's a legal process for us to take care of it?
No question. And I mean, like I said earlier, even real proponents of a more open immigration system are not out there waving the flag for the caravan to come in, despite maybe what some of the Tucker Carlsons and Laura Ingrams would demonize the position as. I mean, what we're saying is, look, have a work visa option that's simple, takes the bureaucracy out, where the government can screen for national security concerns, public health concerns. But if Latin American can pass those, they can come up and pick watermelons and fulfill the American dream that our ancestors did, and make a better lives for themselves and their family. And that would take away some of these economic migrants who you rightly mentioned. A likely majority of the caravan are not political asylees, even though some are, and they have to be dealt with differently. The bulk seems to be economic migrants in the tradition of American immigration for centuries.
But if they're coming here and they're trying to climb the wall, that's
not
American tradition. How do we square that? Yeah, I mean,
we haven't had.
No, absolutely, and I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying, look, this is a symptom. I mean, if we don't have a path for lower skilled people to come in and work for a few years and go home,
and we
agree
with that. Yeah. We agree with that completely. We think that economic policy or immigration policy, if you're going to have an economy that grows at 3.5-4%, you're going to have immigrants. You're going to have immigrant labor.
Right. Just look at the job shortage.
And if we don't, our economy is going to stall, just as it has in Japan and other places where too tight immigration policies have left them with labor shortages. But there's a way to do this. We can't simply say, okay, there are millions of people in Central America who are in bad economic straits. Just come on. Here, the door is open and come on in. There has to be an orderly process. And I do think the United States is doing itself a disservice by not creating or widening that door.
Absolutely. We 100% agree. I mean, this is something where, a principle of the Republic, Bush promoted this, George W. Bush promoted this, Reagan promoted this idea. It's actually had a lot of the people holding it up traditionally have been the big labor groups on the left. Barack Obama actually introduced a poison pill amendment when he was in the Senate to block an increased work visa. So now that political climate has changed a little bit in the last couple of years with the rise of Trump and the rise of this anti-immigration wing of the party. However, what I'm saying is that the suburbs growing and suburbs being such an increasingly important part of not just House elections moving forward, but also state and national elections, Republicans need to get a handle on this issue now, learn how to message it, and I really believe that increased work visas is the compromise solution that will be the political and policy solution.
Well, we've got to leave it there. We're all out of time.
Jordan Bruneau with the Becoming American Initiative. Appreciate your thoughts this morning.
Thanks a lot for having me on.